Welcome to another edition of Homegrown Table Talk. I'm Anna Hamlin, and I'm joined by 4 different FFA officers. We have 2 state officers and 2 chapter officers. We've got Preston, Alexis, Paige, and Owen. So I would like you guys all to do a brief introduction of yourselves and maybe why you became a part of FFA. We'll start with you, Owen.
So my FFA journey first started when I was in freshman year, and I've always been involved in agriculture in some way, and I wanted a way to advance in FFA and agriculture. And I heard from our advisor, I was taking an egg class at the time, and I said, why not try this out? And I got into egg mechanics, and I loved it and stuck with it ever since. So that's, I guess, where I first got into FFA.
What about you, Paige?
So I'm originally from Hermosa, South Dakota, and I just found FFA as something super easy I could find a group of friends in and just really advance my leadership skills and my networking and just all the different things, aspects of FFA that really bring to the table.
And Alexis?
Yeah, so I started because my friends had told me that the ag classes were super fun. So I joined my freshman year, and then I also really enjoy horse judging, so I did that my first year and then stuck with that for the rest of my career mostly. And then, yeah, just got to meet a lot of friends and got to network and meet a lot of people, which was really cool.
And Preston?
I'm a junior right now. I'm from the Sioux Valley FFA chapter, so in Volga. And I joined FFA because it's kind of been a long-standing family tradition to be in FFA. In fact, a relative of mine was a national officer when he was in high school. And so it's kind of a no-brainer for me. I just joined, and now I'm the chapter treasurer. So,
one of the main things I was curious about was if all of you guys had family involvement in FFA, or if any of you came from more urban areas where that involvement is kind of on a lesser scale. So again, we'll just go around and kind of talk about that. I mean, is your whole family an agriculture background in an FFA family?
There's an agriculture background on my mom's side of the family, a little bit on my dad's too, but as far as I know, I maybe had a couple aunts or uncles involved, but my grandpa, he said that, and he's always had his farm, but he just never had the opportunities to be involved in FFA. And then of course my mom and dad didn't have that either, so I'm really the first in our family to be that involved in FFA.
Awesome. What about you, Paige?
My whole family's been in agriculture, and my dad was in FFA when he was in high school, but not super involved, just kind of competed in some contests. So I'm really kind of the first one that really took it and went with it, but definitely just all agriculture background on my dad's side, and so it's just been fun to be one of the first generations.
Yeah, and
yeah, I'm from a very urban area, I live in Rapid, so we don't come from a super strong production ag background, but I joined, and I'm also a first generation. So
that's cool. So at least 3. What about you?
Yeah, as I said earlier, my family's very involved in FFA. All 3 of my older sisters are involved in FFA, and we're chapter officers themselves. And I'm in FFA as well. So.
Awesome. So do you 2 plan on, I know that you guys both said you're chapter officers, right? So do you plan on, continuing your FFA careers?
I've definitely thought about it, and I plan on sticking with it because I've realized the benefits that come with it and how much I've grown as a person through FFA. And I think that if I stick with FFA, I can also start to make more of an impact on the other kids around in our school. And right now as a chapter officer, I can go and talk to the incoming students or anyone younger than me, older, and convince them to join FFA. And I think if you keep with that throughout high school and even possibly further on, if I run for state office eventually, and it always has benefits, and you benefit other people.
Right. What about you?
I'm definitely going to continue my FFA career. I really enjoy being a chapter officer. Getting to choose the events that we're going to do and how we're going to do them it adds a whole nother layer to the fun that can be had in FFA. And just being able to organize those things and help out other students is a really nice feeling that I'm gonna keep enjoying.
Owen, you talked a lot about growing personally through FFA, and I know, of course, it's an ag-based program and ag-based involvement, but what are some of the personal lessons for all of you guys that you've learned that are just more related to growing up and getting through life, not necessarily contributing to ag, but just as a person?
Probably one of the major ones that I learned was just getting out of my comfort zone and taking a chance, because I started off and I was shy, didn't talk much, and I got into chapter office, started talking to more people, got convinced to run for district office, and then ever since then I've been more comfortable talking through LDEs and whatnot. So I think I've grown a lot in just more speaking skills and people skills from that.
I think a lot of times when you grow up in an ag environment, sometimes people skills, like you know how to handle animals, but sometimes it's really hard to start building those interactions and connections too. Yeah. So what have you learned?
Definitely the same as Owen. Just one of our big themes this year as state officers was risk boldly, and so that's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to do those things and give yourself those opportunities that you may not have had before if you wouldn't have just push yourself or took that one more step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. Have you experienced the same thing?
Yeah, so coming from not a super strong ag background has definitely not had its challenges, but it's a different way of going into the organization a little bit. So I've definitely had to learn to believe in myself a little bit more, because we have so many people who we feel like know more than us or that they're going to be better at something. But if you put in the work, you're going to be able to do the same. You're going to be able to compete at the same level. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of learning, but at the same time, that learning is just so beneficial, and especially coming from not as quite of an ag background. I mean, you still have some experiences that are related to it, but there's just such a learning curve that you do have to take those risks.
And everyone's learning. It just depends on where your base level is.
Right. And what about you?
Getting out of your comfort zone is definitely one of the ones that was mentioned earlier, and it was one of the more important ones. And doing that can help you stay in a comfort zone. It'll expand your comfort zone, because you can meet new people and talk to friends, and then get new friends. And then when you're at an event where you don't know anybody, you will know somebody. And then that can push uncomfortable situations into more comfortable ones.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for growing personally, and then, building those connections that you can use for success later in the ag field. So coming up in just a couple moments, we're also going to be talking about the different tasks that you guys get to experience as officers and the type of involvement and commitment that you guys see in FFA. Back, I have another topic that I want to talk to you guys about. I know that this is an involvement-heavy organization. So as chapter officers, what are some of your day-to-day tasks? Owen, you can start.
Day-to-day tasks is and we always have to take an aid class for the semester, be there, be present. That's a big thing. It's just always being present, being accountable, knowing that if the advisor needs something or someone in the chapter needs something, they can come to you. And I think another big part of it is just staying organized, being able to manage your time in school as well is a big part of it, because you have to be able to be in school and take on the workload while still managing your FFA life as well as career outside of school, and whether it's other extracurricular activities like football or sports or whatever it is. So.
Do you play any sports in addition to being an FFA?
I did. I always played football and track, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing that anymore. Had a little bit of a back injury, so we might just be sticking with FFA now.
For sure, but it's awesome that you're involved in so many different things, that you have, other opportunities and other options. So what about you?
FFA is a real time commitment, but it's one that I'm willing to make because I do enjoy it a lot. Just juggling it and schoolwork and a job, and I think it's fun. And with practices as well. Practices for football and track and theater. And as a chapter officer, I really like leading the younger members, teaching them how to study for dairy foods or anything like that. CDs are one of the most enjoyable things that I get to be more involved in as a chapter officer.
Well, and as you guys are officers in school, you've taken the courses and done some of the work that the younger members are doing. So it's awesome that they have the leadership that's already kind of been through what they're going through then. So on the collegiate level, what does that look like for commitment and involvement?
So as state officers, we're working in the office a couple days a week, just depending on the spring or the fall semester. So those days are spent doing, making workshops, writing curriculum, getting stuff ready for events, planning events, doing all those different things, traveling to chapters throughout the fall, just kind of doing all those things. So that's a big commitment on that part. Also, just whatever time we have extra, we're doing other stuff for the association. So just kind of balancing all that with schoolwork and other clubs that we're involved in across campus, and having a job outside of that, or if you have livestock at home, all those things you kind of have to learn how to juggle and have good time management to get all your things done.
That's a good point that you bring up too. I mean, a lot of people that are involved in FFA have other things that they're managing back home, like ranching, farming, those types of commitments, which is a huge commitment in and of itself. So that's a big balance. I know that you were involved with some horse-related things, so can you talk a little bit about that and how you balance that with FFA too?
Yeah, so this spring I actually had a horse for Little Eye, which is one of our student-run shows here, and so I had to definitely schedule out time that I was going to go out and work with her to make sure that I was giving her enough attention that she needed so that we could be successful in both being a state officer and then being able to compete with her as well.
Right, and it takes a lot of time management skills to be able to do that, which I guess is another useful skill that you have to balance out. And what is it like to work through a high school and a college workload as you're a part of FFA too? Because I know that both of those things, they're different, but they present their own challenges too. So what do you guys think about that?
One thing personally about it is it's hard to find time for it, but it's not that it's a burden. You enjoy being in FFA, and it's when you have all the stresses of high school and whatnot, FFA is kind of that time away from that to do something that you enjoy. So in a way for me, it's doing something that I like, so I don't think of it as making, it's not as big of a deal for me because I personally enjoy it, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like a sport. It's almost like your energy release and stress release, and just being involved with the people that you care about and care about the same things as you. What about for the collegiate level?
Collegiate is a little bit harder. Being in college definitely presents a lot more hands-on, well, not more hands-on, but for every hour that you're spent in class, you're supposed to spend that hour outside of class as well. So it's a lot of time work, outside of class, and so trying to manage that with all of the stuff you're trying to do with FFA as well it's presented its own challenges, but being able to have those time management skills from in high school or if we lived on a ranch or farm. And so being able to get through what we need to, and the professors have been very great. Most of them have been super understanding when we've had to be gone a lot, and so that's been really helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful to be in an ag program and then an FFA. I feel like they're understanding of what's going on there.
Yeah, I was actually in human biology pre-med major, and I'm going into nursing, but they have still been really awesome. Even if they don't really understand as much about what it is, they're still super accommodating.
That's super cool. And then being an officer in college, I mean, of course that has its own challenges, but I wanted to ask too, what does involvement look like in some of your other extracurriculars?
So I'm actually involved in a sorority on campus, so that's something that it took a lot of time this fall, because when you get into that sorority, you have to do some studying, whatever. So that, just separating your time, but also enjoying yourself. We're in college, this is our time to meet lifelong friends, and enjoying being able to have your freshman year at college still is important. So being able to balance your time, but also give yourself that time that you need to just be a student and be yourself at school too was kind of hard to figure out right away when we first came to college, how much time we need to be putting into each specific thing we're involved in. But once you kind of figure it out, you kind of get into a flow, and then you can kind of just roll with that, and you know how much time you need to spend on homework or FFA or your extracurricular activities that you're involved in.
Well, coming up next, we'll be talking more about the state FFA convention and everything that happens there and what you guys have been able to accomplish so far this year. So stick around. we've talked a lot about what FFA is doing right now, so let's kind of look back on the year ahead and then talk about where we're going. So as chapter officers, what have you guys seen in your chapters?
I'm really excited for our chapter's FFA future because we have many middle school and freshman members that all seem to be very excited, especially in our dairy food section for CDEs. This year as a chapter officer, I got to help organize the FFA week in February, and I also just organized with my fellow chapter officers our year-ending banquet. And so far, I only have positive things to say about it.
Awesome. What about you, Owen?
I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is seeing the growth and how our chapter is, like I said, growing. But a big focus of this past year was getting that growth, whether that's at the middle school level, because currently right now, we don't have egg in the middle school, and we're trying to make programs to get it in the middle school. So we went over there a couple times, and I know it comforts me knowing that there are younger kids who will be interested in FFA and have a background in egg or not a background at all, but they want to go into some sort of FFA or egg-related career someday. And just seeing even the growth in high school, because I was a Sentinel this year, so had to go around, make friends with people and talk to them a little bit more than normal. So kind of just convincing more people to be in FFA and then seeing them grow personally too, because everyone compared to last year I thought was so much more involved. They had more practices and they committed more to their CDEs, and we saw results of that this year, people placing higher and setting better goals and reaching those goals. So that's a good thing seeing that, and I hope that carries on into next year too. So.
And Alexis and Paige, what have you guys seen on the state level?
Just growth in our membership. We just reached over 100 chapters this year, so we're super excited to continue to keep growing our membership numbers, chapter numbers, and just getting to see a lot of kids get involved. And we're about to have the biggest convention we've ever held with the most amount of members registered. So we're super excited to just see all the members and how much they've accomplished over the year, because there's been so many great accomplishments throughout chapters and district officers and just all of the members, how great it's been.
Do you have anything that you wanted to add?
We're definitely excited to celebrate all of their successes and be able to highlight them in the best way possible this weekend. So.
You guys might have some differing perspectives on this topic, but you said you came from a really strong ag background and you not as much. So what do you think the importance of FFA is in the growth of agriculture?
Yeah, FFA in agriculture, like, it is in everyone's lives, whether they recognize it or not. And so, like, me going into a non-ag related career field, I feel like it's super important to have those people who have went through FFA or have learned about agriculture to be able to advocate for that in their future careers.
And I think it's important too to note, you don't have to grow up in ag or necessarily even be directly involved to appreciate it and just support the industry and support those that are in it. And is that how you feel too?
Oh, that's 100% how I feel. Every year at the state fair is one of my favorite events, and now that I know some of the state officers personally, this previous state fair was really fun, being able to talk to them about things they've done and interacting with the events in new ways.
And why is it important for our generation to be getting involved in ag? Anyone can pitch in.
Well, I guess one thing that I've seen is, some people say that agriculture at the time being is, there's less people involved in it, but I think that looking at the students who are involved now, I think that there's a good hope for the future, because there's people who are joining FFA, like you said, that don't have a background, and I think that there will never be a shortage of people who will be there to stick up for agriculture someday. So.
Yeah, and even if you didn't grow up in it or you're not an FFA, it's possible to still advocate for that and support it for sure. So do you guys get support, from your friend groups and things like that with your involvement?
Oh yeah, of course. Like a lot of our friend groups are based off, or mine anyways, my
Right.
friend groups are based off agriculture because that's what I'm a part of, and I live in a dorm where it's all ag kids mostly. So it's just really interesting, like seeing how many different backgrounds you can come from in ag, because some kids come from a completely total farming operation or livestock operation, or they just have different involvement in ag. So it's really interesting to see how every agriculture touches every person's life in different aspects or ways, and agriculture is a part of your life, like whether you are just a consumer or you're making the food. It's just so interesting to see how many people are supportive of ag because they know how important it is.
And I think the whole ag community, you know, we all support each other, but there's so many differences in industry, like from soybean farming just to cattle ranching. Those are just two completely different things, but FFA really encompasses everything, even from, you know, a horse background to things like farming backgrounds. So that's certainly something that we can all look forward to doing, is supporting that. And do you think Owen, you mentioned that you think there's a lot of hope for the ag industry in the future. Do you guys see that too in our generation?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many amazing members across the state that, like you said, are in come from various backgrounds, or they have like different interests that are gonna go on and be able to improve our state and our nation.
Well, thank you guys all so much for helping us all learn a little bit more about FFA. I hope that you guys have an awesome time at the convention, and I'll see you guys around there.
Tailor us just as well as any man.